Hello there. This is Welsh ASMR 82. Hey, how you doing? So a couple of my patrons said to me recently, have you considered doing maps of space, or things related to space? Maybe not maps as such, because obviously on this channel we just do things about Earth, funny enough. And I said, it's really funny you should say that, because I used this book, like my original channel, which is just for those language videos that I do now in random different languages like Polish and Persian, etc., Korean, French. That channel did everything originally. It was my only channel. We're talking when I first started, like 7 years ago, and so I did use this book back then. So I found the videos, I'd delisted them. Maybe they're on a playlist somewhere, but I delisted them from being found. I thought it would muddle up who found that channel. And I listened back briefly to one of them, and the sound quality wasn't as good. I didn't have the same stuff going on 7 years ago. So I thought, okay, I'll get this book out and we'll take a look at it. And what I previously did was I did a video on Venus, a video on Mars, a video on Jupiter. And actually I think this book isn't great for that, doing little snapshots, because it's got beautiful pictures, but it's very wordy, and I'd just be basically reading out a load of info, which I think I did in the original videos, but I think that's not what I'd like to do. I was hoping for more little snapshots of information, so instead what I'll do is I'll just flick through the whole book and we'll read little tidbits of information about the different planets of our solar system and look at the lovely pictures. And if this video does well and there's a nice response in the comment section, I'll consider looking for a book that fulfills my expectations a little bit better, i.e. is a bit more maybe for children, with lots of snapshots and key information, because this is very, very wordy. Okay, so we'll do it that way instead. I hope that's okay with all of you. Incidentally, if you're interested in getting the book, it's a little bit old now, so maybe, I'm sure it still exists. It's a book called The Planet by Andrew Cohen with Professor Brian Cox. And it's based on the BBC documentary of about, I think, 15 years ago now, which at the time when it came out I was literally obsessed with. I thought it was the most amazing thing ever. I love Brian Cox's presentation style as well, and I love his accent. Is he from Manchester? He's from up north anyway, isn't he? Fantastic accent. Okay, the planets. So it says the solar system, an introduction, and that's on page 6. And then we've got, first of all, the inner planets, so Mercury and Venus, entitled A Moment in the Sun. Obviously they're very close to the Sun. And then Earth and Mars, the two sisters. The comparison in size between Mars and Earth, if that's to scale, is incredible. And also Mercury to Venus as well. Venus is very comparative to Earth in terms of its size and I think denseness of gravity, perhaps. We'll see. Jupiter, which is, so important in our solar system, absolutely crucial. They say potentially it's the reason that life was able to be on Earth in the first place. Had we not had Jupiter to attract all of the comets and debris in the solar system and help the sun in terms of gravitational flow, maybe we would have been bombarded so many times, like the time the dinosaurs were destroyed, that maybe life, complex life, wouldn't have existed on Earth at all. So thanks, Jupiter. However, my favourite is Saturn. Look at those rings, they are amazing. And we'll also look at Uranus and Neptune. And this looks like a Pokeball, doesn't it? Because in the middle is the not planet, Pluto. That's probably why it's not a planet, because it is tiny. So Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. I've heard Uranus pronounced Uranus as well. Obviously lots of jokes about Uranus incoming in the comment section. If your sense of humour is as childish as mine, then we'll actually see the rings around these planets as well, because Saturn's not alone. They even think that Earth will have rings in a very long time in the future. Okay, so this is the introduction to the solar system. We can't start without talking about our sun, of course. Because this is the reason we're here, that we exist, because we have this energy source. And the beautiful night sky that many of us due to city street lights cannot see. To be honest, I don't think anyone can see it in that detail without a camera, but I like this quote. The exploration of the planets is not an indulgence. If we want to know how we came to be here, we need to understand the histories of the planet that gave birth to us and the system that gave birth to it. We are children of Earth and also children of the solar system. This is the Milky Way. It says, the Milky Way in the night sky over Sliding Spring Observatory, New South Wales, Australia. Curious, whenever I have to remind myself that being from Wales, not New South Wales, this night sky, I'll have never seen it in my life. This is a completely different view. I sometimes find it difficult to get my head around the fact that the Northern Hemisphere has a completely different concept of what stars and constellations we have and what we can see, which kind of freaks me out in a way. Okay, so there's lots of things about asteroids. There's that one that was in Russia a couple of years back. 2 views of the Chelyabinsk meteor fireball caught on camera in 2013. This book is not that old then, I guess. Look at that picture. Gosh, that's the lack of things in this picture is what is shocking. It says above, satellite image of the Earth centered on the Pacific Ocean. You never get pictures like this. We always focus on countries, don't we? Not the actual lack of land, but the thing that allows us to live in the first place, our water. Water dominates this hemisphere of the blue planet. And you can see just how close Alaska is to Russia there as well, look. And how far away from everything New Zealand is. And then the next picture is the moon. It says the far side of the moon bears the scars of late heavy bombardment. Photographed from Apollo 16 in 1972. I didn't recognise it. We've never really seen that part of the moon, have we? "4 billion years ago, as life began on Earth, Mars was also Earth-like." So apparently this here is the Mississippi Delta. It says this colour-enhanced satellite photo of the Mississippi Delta, River Delta, shows a lush, watery landscape. 4 billion years ago, as life began on Earth, Mars was also Earth-like. It had oceans and rivers, an active geology and complex surface chemistry, the ingredients of life. It's crazy that if you time travelled and looked at Mars, I mean, everything about this conversation is impossible, but if you looked at Mars at a certain time, rather than seeing a red planet, you would have possibly seen a blue planet because of the water on its surface. Okay, Mercury and Venus. Macbeth, by William Shakespeare's quote, "Life's but a walking shadow." We'll find out possibly why that's important in a second. I can't really work it out. And then Venus, where apart from Mars, they say is our best chance of finding life on a planet in the solar system. But we'll talk about moons later when we get to Jupiter and Saturn, where possibly the best chance of all, of some, even microbial life, could be on moons of those two big planets. Moons that are indeed bigger than Mercury, I believe. The runaway greenhouse effect, which is what happened to Venus, is a perfect example of what could happen to Earth in the future if we don't do anything about it. By Lynn Rothschild, or Rothschild. I think there are other factors at play, but I understand the sentiment that even the fact that our temperature has gone up by 1 degree in the last 100 years is catastrophic, whereas there's this inescapable cloud system within Venus that, everything the sun gives it, it doesn't allow to escape. Oh wow, is that the view from, okay, above and opposite? These computer artworks show how the Earth might appear in 5 to 7 billion years' time as the sun swells and becomes a red giant. Temperatures on our planet's surface will soar, making life untenable. That's kind of terrifying. Imagine waking up. Well, you wouldn't wake up, you'd be dead. This picture here is very beautiful. The last colourful hurrah of a star. Ultraviolet light from the dying star causes a glow around the white dwarf at the centre, where the star is burned out. This planetary nebula tells the story of the demise of our own sun. A diagram here about growing a rocky planet, how it increases. Chapter about exploring Mercury. I don't think there's much to see, really, is there? Mercury's elliptical path around the Sun shifts slightly with each orbit, such that its closest point to the Sun moves forward with each pass. This discovery could not be verified with Newtonian physics, and it took Albert Einstein's theory of relativity to finally explain it. So it's getting closer to the Sun. I also vaguely remember the fact that only one side faces the Sun, possibly, and so it's scorched but the other side is freezing. Is that something I made up? Also, because there's elliptical orbit, there is a point in time where Mercury is closer to Earth than Venus. But that I'm not even going to bother explaining. I couldn't. During its 88-day orbit around the Sun, it travels in a lopsided elliptical orbit, which means it can be as far away from the Sun as 70 million kilometers, but occasionally as close as 46 million kilometers. This is by far the most irregular of orbits of all the planets, but it is not the end of Mercury's oddity. Temperatures at midday can rise to 430 degrees Celsius on the surface, but at night, because it's a small planet and it has no atmosphere, temperatures fall to minus 170 degrees, giving it the greatest temperature swing of any known body in the solar system. I was wrong about that, because you wouldn't have night if you didn't spin, would you? Its rotation is also unusual, gravitationally locked to the Sun in what is known as a 3 to 2 spin orbital resonance. This means the planet spins precisely 3 times on its axis for every 2 orbits, which in turn means that its day is twice as long as its year. In effect, you could be travelling over its surface at walking pace and keep the Sun at the same point in the sky as you strolled through eternal twilight. Okay, so what I said was kind of half-truth. It's like it takes so long to spin compared to its year. If you kept moving, you just never get to nighttime. Mapping Mercury. Okay, let's try and get to Venus. This is from Mariner 10, which is the first close-up image of Venus. You can clearly see all the clouds. Planet of mystery. So we're on to Venus now. So today Venus is incredibly hostile, so hot, so dry. But what did it start out like? Was it ever more Earth-like? We don't know for sure. So we want to make future spacecraft missions to nail down that early history. Apparently there's no chance of surviving on the surface of Venus, but you could live in the clouds where it is less toxic and there is oxygen and water vapor. So, you know, having something floating in the sky actually would potentially be possible. In the GISS models simulation, Venus's slow spin exposes its day side to the Sun for almost 2 months at a time. This warms the surface and produces rain that creates a thick layer of clouds, which acts like an umbrella to shield the surface from much of the solar heating. The result is mean climate temperatures that are actually a few degrees cooler than Earth's today. And there's a model here explaining the greenhouse effect. How naturally the sun's rays will go down and leave the planet at night when it cools down. Greenhouse gases are there and they lock in a certain amount but not all of it, whereas if you increase this as human enhanced, more greenhouse gases mean that those just bounce back into the planet and can't escape. Capturing the sun's warmth is essential for life on a planet, but when too much heat is trapped, it can have devastating consequences. So on the other page it says, Venus hasn't stopped heating up, and we believe that as the sun continues to age billions of years into the future, it's going to continue getting hotter. Eventually that means that Earth will go the way of Venus. Extremely long time, I think. It's talking about the relationship with potentially Earth. Okay. There's a new section here jumped a little bit. Mercury and Venus is still there, but it's A New Hope on the left-hand side. And this is a picture. This colour view shows Saturn's icy moon Enceladus, perhaps our closest candidate for sustaining life as we know it. These marks show that I think this ice is shifting and moving, which potentially means that there's this is on the top, obviously exposed to the extremely cold space, but it suggests, from my understanding, my recollection, that there's geothermal activity below, which means it's warm, which means that if there's water and warmth, there's the potential for life. In a very simplistic way of me explaining it. So from left to right, the moons of Jupiter, Ganymede, Callisto and Io are dynamic worlds. The former two lie dormant, waiting to be awakened by the warmth of the sun. And at the top, Titan, a frozen moon shrouded in its own atmosphere as seen from Saturn. So this actually is a moon, but it has an atmosphere, so better than Mercury or Mars. Well, Mars does have a very weak atmosphere. And speak of the devil, this is Mars. Of course, the red planet is its nickname, but it's not red as we associate red with heat. It's freezing cold. This is just due to the I want to say something oxide in the soil. Basically, it's rust. It's like the planet is rusted. Some maps of Mars. So this is the Grand Canyon on Earth. The Grand Canyon in Arizona began to form about 1,200 million years ago in the late Proterozoic period. Never seen this word before in my life. Proterozoic period. Mars was already long frozen by this point. I wonder whether in my lifetime we'll have people on Mars, perhaps living or working there. The rock record preserved in those layers holds stories that are billions of years old, stories about whether, when and for how long Mars might have been habitable. And they've now found underground water. So there's potential that there could be microbial life underneath the surface, where it still might be a little bit warmer. And if there's water and other things needed for life, things like oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, talk about the death of Mars. Olympus Mons makes Mount Everest look like a sand castle. So this is Olympus Mons. That's the polar ice cap, which isn't water. It's actually, I want to say carbon dioxide, but maybe I'm wrong. Olympus is so tall that it reaches beyond the bulk of the atmosphere. That's right. So if you walked at the top of this mountain, you'd actually be in space. Talking about losing atmosphere. the Earth now. We'll skip the Earth. This, of course, is Jupiter. A quote from J.R.R. Tolkien, one of my personal faves, from the Fellowship of the Ring: "Not all those who wander are lost." Jupiter is the king of the planets, not only in terms of its size and the beauty you see in the cloud tops, but also in terms of shaping the entire evolutionary story of our solar system. I think it does help to control the tides even. I know the moon does, the moon and the sun, but maybe it was something I read, if the moon disappeared, because it will go at some point, but in millions of years, the moon will drift off into space. It gets further away from us every year by a tiny amount, and I think at that point life would cease to exist, because tides would just be so immense. Every time the Earth would turn towards the sun, all the water on the planet would gush towards that. But I think some would be attracted to Jupiter, because it has such a gravitational pull even on our planet. So this is the approximate size of Earth, this tiny, tiny dot in the middle of Jupiter. Jupiter is the biggest planet in this whole system. It is the giant. Its diameter is 10 times the size of the Earth. Its mass is 320 times the mass of the Earth. This is the big, giant planet. It is 5 times the distance between the Earth and the Sun, out there from the Sun. And actually, I think I also saw somewhere that it has the building blocks to be a sun, like it could have done it, and then we would have had a binary system, which would have been pretty chaotic. Again, don't think life would have even begun to exist. Although the concept that you could potentially fall through Jupiter, I mean, you'd be crushed. There's the big spot, the storm, there's been the red spot, it's been raging for thousands of years, because there's no landmass like mountains to break up the storm, so it just goes around the planet endlessly in these extremely high winds. And that's the point. I don't think there's any land as we know it. Potentially, then some people aren't quite sure about it. Some people think there might be a core, but what that is might redefine what we perceive to be a core, We now suspect that at this early time in the life of the solar system, as Jupiter circled the young Sun, something caused the giant planet to spiral inwards towards the Sun, ploughing right through the asteroid belt. Jupiter's motion through the early solar system can be thought of as quite destructive, but in destruction there are also opportunities for creation. Jupiter, the father of the skies and ruler of the heavens, had cast its hand far and wide, sculpting the precious solar system we see today in the space of just a few million years. Let's get to Saturn then, shall we? Oh, look at that beautiful. Always has been my favourite. The most beautiful thing we can experience is the mysteriousness. It is the source of all true art and science. He to whom the emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. His eyes are closed, said Albert Einstein. The Saturn system has it all. A massive gas planet, an incredible ring system, myriad worlds, icy moons, with many different characteristics, and one of the largest moons in the solar system, Titan. It's a wonderland for scientists, said Bob Pappalardo of the Cassini mission. Celestial jewel. At one time, 10 million tons of diamond hail are raining down upon Saturn's surface. Similar to Jupiter, Saturn is a gas giant alive with storms of unimaginable ferocity in a world of alien weather where diamonds rain down from the sky and bubbling vortexes whip around the planet so fast they catch up with their own tails. And glistening in the distant light of the sun is a 500,000-mile ring of almost pure frozen water, broken into millions of individual pieces. This structure is unique in our solar system, sculptured by the delicate hand of gravity. Yet for all their iconic beauty, the rings are just a fleeting shadow, an echo of Saturn's past and an ephemeral structure that has adorned the planet for a brief moment in its history and will soon disappear again. Yeah, it will lose its rings at some point. It's a beautiful picture of Okay. Here's a size comparison. So you've got Mercury, tiny dot, Venus and Earth. Earth slightly larger than Venus, Mars another smaller planet but not as small as Mercury. Jupiter, enormous, Saturn huge, Uranus, Neptune larger, and tiny Pluto. Saturn does explode into roiling storms every couple of decades. I think it means rolling. We were lucky enough to be there when one of the major storms ever seen on Saturn was spotted, which brought stuff up over 100 miles high. Those rings, wow, they're amazing. And there's a section on Saturn's moons, very important. The clearest views ever taken of Saturn's largest moon, Titan, which is usually camera shy and shrouded in haze. There's a nice diagram here of Saturn. So this is Titan actually. Rhea, Hyperion, in this light I can't see, Iapetus, is there an A? Iapetus, Phoebe, Helen, Dion, Telesto, Calypso, Tethys, Enceladus, Mimas, Epimethus, and I can't read that one. Is that? Hang on. Oh yes, Prometheus, Pandora, Atlas, Pan, and then Saturn. So Titan is massive compared to the rest of them. It's Enceladus. Okay, and then lastly onto the Pokeball. Uranus, Neptune, and little old Pluto. So this is the edge of our solar system. It says, out there far into darkness, lie the most distant planets of the solar system, worlds we can hardly even glimpse from Earth. The Sun is like a dot to them. Yes, we can see the rings here. This is Uranus was the first planet discovered with the aid of a telescope. William Herschel's reflecting telescope, to be precise. Two images of Uranus. On the left it appears in its true colours. On the right image was taken using filters to show cloud bands in the atmosphere. God, it is beautiful, isn't it? A lovely blue. So there's another picture of it. It says Uranus as imaged by Voyager 2 in 1986. Its blue-green colour comes from the methane gas in its atmosphere. Scientists have carried out high-pressure experiments to conclude that it might in fact rain diamonds on Uranus. Top right. Uranus's largest moon, Titania, was revealed by Voyager 2 to be geologically active with a visible system of fault valleys. This is Neptune now. Look how beautiful Neptune is as well, look at that. Voyager 2 captured Neptune's great dark spot, which was invaluable, as years later this storm system would disappear from view. I'll see if I can get the camera over there. Hang on, let me pause it. Get to move a couple of things over on the desk. It's a lovely diagram. Rocky, icy cores. This one does have a core. Inner mantle, methane, ammonia and water. Outer mantle, mainly liquid hydrogen. Atmosphere, hydrogen, helium and methane. It would be a bit smelly then, wouldn't it? And then on Neptune's moons, it's a view from one of the moons, I guess. The south polar terrain of Triton, the moon, showing dark plumes or wind stacks on the moon's surface, and there's a view of Neptune from the surface. This is a created image, this isn't a photo. We have very few photos, realistically. Whenever you see one of a planet, particularly from a planet's surface, it's AI. Oh yes, search for Planet X. So, oh yeah, at the time, this has become Pluto, I think. The discovery of the Kuiper Belt in Pluto's context in the 1990s was probably the single most important discovery about our solar system of the space age. It redrew the map completely. There are lots of bodies of items that are in there that are left over from planets. So it says the second largest dwarf planet Eris after Pluto, and its moon Dysnomia. So there are other, objects that could be described as planets, but just don't qualify. The dwarf planet, Quaoar, 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 which is roughly half the size of Pluto, and its moon Waywatt. And then, very pretty, Pluto. Pluto in all its dwarf planet majesty, as viewed by the New Horizons probe. I mean, it is an interesting question about whether it is a planet or not, and what we define as a planet, because if it's not big enough to be a planet, then what's Enceladus and Titan? Are they planets? are they moons? Because I think that, I think I know the answer to my own question. I think to be a planet you have to be going around the sun, and a moon goes around a planet. And I think technically Pluto, whilst it is going around the sun, it is also in an orbit with its own moon, so it's kind of going around its own moon, going around the sun. So arguably, I think that's the reason it was demoted, because it technically has two orbits. And potentially, I think that the actual thing to be a planet is it has to go around the sun only. And so it doesn't quite fit that, I believe. I'm looking forward to getting some very intelligent and well-researched comments. I'm just kind of babbling about stuff that I think I know, but I don't sell anything as knowledge, more like I've watched this video and picked up this info, am I right? Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Quite a long video as well, so hopefully you're asleep by now. If you're not, then click that like button, and once you've done that, click subscribe if you're new to the channel, and leave me a comment, and as I say, let me know whether you'd be interested in more videos to do with info on the planets, and I can incorporate that into the schedule of the channel. I can get some books to talk about Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and whatnot. So yeah, let me know. Big thank you to my patrons, hello, for your inspiration in this video, and I really enjoyed doing it, so thank you. And if you want to chat to me, then join my Patreon and get extra videos every month as well as a bonus. Okay, thanks so much for watching. Bye bye bye.